Good evening. Before the proceeding with the formal business of the meeting, I would ask Yogesh Mistry to lead us in prayer. Yogesh.
Good evening, everybody. Om Bhurbhuva Swaha Tatsavituvarenyam Bhargo Devyasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. English translation. Let us meditate on the glorious effulgence of that Supreme Being who has created the universe. May she enlighten our hearts and direct our understanding. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrutyom Ma Mrutam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. English translation. From the unreal lead us to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. From death lead us to immortality. Peace unto all. Om Sahanuvattu Sahanu Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahe Tejasvi Navidahe Tamastu Ma Vividsavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May He protect us. May He nourish us. May our studies make unto illumined. May there be no dislike amongst us. May we act together for the common good, peace unto all.
Thank you. It is my sad duty to report the death of Councillor Paul Castleman on 17th of August. Councillor Castleman first elected at the Farley by-election in 2014 and re-elected for South Ward in 2015 and again 2019, serving total of 7 years. Before I ask other colleagues to speak, I would like to say a few words myself. And can I just say that Paul was the most dedicated public servant I have ever known in my life. He was passionate about Luton's heritage, as well as trying to improve the best services to the people of Luton, and particularly in terms of affordable housing. And all the last 5 or 6 years, he tried his best to get as many affordable housing as he possibly can. He was a true gentleman and a real Lutonian, as I had the privilege and honor to be able to speak at his funeral. And the one thing that Paul was an honest, a person who served this town in his best interest. I, as a friend, will always miss him, and most of the colleagues will do as well. So I now ask, does any member wish to speak? Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's with sadness that I stand up tonight to talk about Paul. I'd known him for a long time, but I hadn't known him very well over that period of time. And it was only when he became a councillor that I got to know him really well, and often sat and had coffee with him in Costas and talked about lots of things in his past. Paul suffered quite bad health most of his life. And I think it was a shock to all of us at his funeral how really ill he had been most of his life. But he carried on always with the interests of people of Luton at the forefront, and his dedication and loyalty. He was a good socialist, and I will miss him, and I'm sure all our thoughts are with his family and friends at this really sad time.
Councillor Franks?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've actually only knew Paul since he joined the council, so I can't claim to have long history of knowing him. But what I can say is that I worked with him on a number of issues. He was chair of a charity at which I'm also a trustee, and it seemed to me that just about every task that he took on, he put 100% of himself into it. And I don't think you can ask more of anybody. Yes, of course, he's going to be missed. He made his contribution while he was here, and he's left a lasting legacy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like you all, I knew of Paul when he became a councillor and served with him as an executive member. And we happened to become friends because he was suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, and it's an area of expertise that I've had working in the pharma industry. And I remember him sharing with me the difficulties he was having. And when I did recommend a medication, he was very thankful because that improved his quality of life. But as a councillor, he was a very detailed person, would never compromise on his belief. And he was a very passionate person who genuinely wanted to serve the residents of Luton. When I found out that he had COVID, this was second time around, and he was in hospital, and I remember texting him to find out how he was. He was on a ventilator, and as soon as he came off, he texted back and he says he was on the mend and he was getting better. And then soon after, we realized that he did not make it. And while speaking to Hazel, one of the text messages he sent just before he passed away, that he apologized for not being able to deliver the very much needed housing that we wanted from Central Baths, and that showed the dedication. And he was saying, I'm signing out. That was the last text message just before he passed away. You could see nothing else mattered to him, even at the moment when he knew death was near, but serving the residents of Luton. So his memories will live with us for a lifetime. Thank you.
Councillor Dave Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Paul Castleman and myself go back a very, very long time. In fact, we were fellow pupils at Stopsley Secondary Modern School, as it was then. He was in the year below me, but his cousin Trevor was in my class at Stopsley School. And we used to meet in the canteen and have a chat. That was way back when, let's say, it was around the 1960s, if my memory goes that far back. And then we kind of lost touch. And it wasn't until Paul joined the Labour Party that we started to reminisce about old school days and what we got up to. And Paul was always he was a bit of a shy man, but he was capable. And I remember when there was the by-election in Farley, myself and you, Mr. Mayor, trying to persuade him to stand as a councillor. He says, "Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. It's would I be good enough, etc., etc." But we persuaded him to stand in Farley, and that was when he was first elected. And he was doing an incredible job. And he stood in South Ward. And Paul was always a go-to person for anybody, lived in the ward. And he always responded. And he always went to see people. And he was one of the old school councillors that really cared about the environment, the ward that he lived in, and the town. And he'll be sadly missed by me, especially. And I'm all members of the council are sharing that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Javeria Hussain?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As everybody knows in here, Councillor Castleman was my colleague. It's still a shock, but we've got to carry on his legacy. I basically got elected in 2019, and one of the things that he taught me was how to be a good councillor and how to be there for my constituents, which is something that I'm going to obviously carry forward. He was a good friend to me. He was also a good friend to my uncles, Zulfikar and Farouk, and we will miss him. But obviously, he is an irreplaceable loss. But we will carry on the good work that he started in the ward with full vigour. Thank you.
Councillor Burnett.
Yeah, I've just been reflecting on the times that I've known Paul, and one of the things I can say that Paul had integrity. And I just remember when himself and Councillor Javeria and Councillor David Eggleby fought for an issue that was against what others wanted in the town, the playing fields for Kewtno. But he and his colleagues, they worked really well together and they listened to the views of their residents. Also, I can say that Paul made me feel welcome. When others didn't, he did. And as things in Luton has changed, he would sit in and listen to the experience of the African and Caribbean community in the town. And he genuinely wanted to hear. He was not a person that shut down anybody's experience. He listened and he wanted to understand and reason and get a better understanding. And given how politicians can be and quite hostile to each other, Paul was never like that. I never found the gentleman to be hostile to anybody. He always wanted to listen. He always wanted to learn. And what I loved about what he'd done, he brought his experience of being an officer for a neighbouring authority to being a councillor to try and give a better experience. And I am really, having lost parents and cousins, to lose a fellow councillor that made me feel welcome when I got into politics, would listen to a debate, is really, really upsetting for me, because he opened and his wife, Jenny's lovely. She's always knitting or crocheting. And it's just lovely. So I'm really sad to miss him, but he made a difference. And it's really glad, I'm really thankful to have experienced somebody like that wasn't rough, wasn't disrespectful, didn't bully. He actually lived the 7 principles of the Nolan in public life. And I just had to use this opportunity because I've wanted to when we had the Mayor's Investory, but couldn't. And you know what, even hearing Councillor Taylor talk about him, their trips to the LA, what happens in LA, stay in LA, is lovely. It's really lovely for me to hear about somebody that welcomed me genuinely into politics. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Javed Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I've only known Paul when I got elected in 2019, but my reflection of him was he was such a wonderful man. He was honest, he had high integrity, and I learned so much. I could not even imagine having a better mentor. He had this can-do attitude. He was a Lutonian through and through. He cared about the town, he cared about the people, and he would always put others above him. And at no point, if you asked him, look, I've got this issue, he'd say, yep, Javed, I'll come now. No, I'll come tomorrow. And he wasn't just with me. He was like that with everybody. You know, he was a go-to guy. If you went to him with a problem, he'd do his best to help you. And I think my echo, he will truly be missed for that balanced approach that he gave us all. You know, he was calm and collective, and his arguments were well thought through. And sadly, may he rest in peace.
Councillor Wahid Akbar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have known Councilman for a long time in the Labour Party, and then he became the member of the council. I had a very good working relationship with him, and he always very supportive, motivating, and encouraging the good things, and also maybe disagreeing some of the issues which maybe we don't agree on those. Also, he was very honest and straightforward person, and I think he has committed himself for the people of Luton, and he has special interest in highways and the environment and the housing. And we worked, and I think he will be greatly missed. I think he was also very, actually loyal to the group and the people, and also he wanted to promote the equalities. I remember, and Councillor, your mayor yourself, he promoted the underrepresented communities like David Eggley, the first time elected. He was one of them who promoted, because he thought that the African communities are not represented as they should have on the council. I think he will be greatly missed by all of us. Thank you.
Tahir Malik.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Paul Castleman was a great friend and also a colleague. And as you said earlier, he was a true gentleman. He was a very humble person. I would like to extend my heartfelt condolences to his family and friends. And I would pray, may his soul rest in peace. And I'm sure that he will never be missed. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other member? Yes, Councillor Kashif.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we all are, we're going to sadly miss Paul. I had the honor to work with him as a shadow portfolio holder for highways when he was a portfolio holder. I found him very helpful, very down-to-the-earth person. Always he made sure that I get all the briefing, all the invitation in the meetings. And he was, as Councillor Javed said, he was our mentor. You know, he was like a fatherly figure for all of us, and we will miss him. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Young.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm one of the few people who's probably hardly known Paul for maybe only a couple of years. But what came over, he was a man for all the people of Luton, and Luton was his passion. And I think he dedicated his life to making everybody's life that little bit better, which I think is a great tribute to him. And I believe, and I'm sure he will be greatly missed throughout the town. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll ask Robin Porter now to say a few words on behalf of the officers of the council.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak at your meeting, which is, I know, not normal. But as the head of paid service and on behalf of the workforce of the council, I would just like to state our condolences. Paul was a passionate advocate for Luton and a fierce advocate for his ward residents. He was the driving force in drawing together and shaping our new heritage strategy, which will be a living tribute to him. Despite the challenges he faced, he was a councillor who played a full and active role in civic life and in driving democracy in our town. Above all, he wanted to deliver positive change for Luton. Mr. Mayor, Councillor Castleman will be sadly missed by the officers of your council.
Thank you. I would ask members to stand, please, for 1 minute silence in memory of Councillor Costa. Everyone, before we begin, would members please sit in their allocated seats, silence their mobile phones, stand up when proposing or seconding the item. Please switch your microphone on to speak and off immediately after. If there is an emergency, turn left out to the chamber, follow the green emergency exit signs to the Man Town Hall entrance, assemble in St. George's Square. Please note that the meeting is being live streamed to the public. Any members of the public present and entitled to take photographs, film, audio record, report on all public meetings in accordance with the openness of local government bodies regulation 2014. People may not, however, act in any way considered to be disrupted and may be asked to leave. The first item of the business is to receive the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th and the 1st of September, as set out in pages 4 to 9. Does the council approve and agree the signing of the minutes correct? Agreed? No. If any member objects, please indicate. Otherwise, I'll assume members are in agreement, as you've already done that. Apologies for absence.
Mr. Mayor, I've received apologies from councillors Agbali, Campbell, A. Hussein, Lovell, Moles and Timoney.
Alan Steppelhorn, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other apologies? Yep. Members, please note that the voting will be exception. Rather than calling out each member's name to record their vote, I'll ask member to indicate if they wish to vote against the motion. If no one member votes against, I'll declare them carried. The outcome will not be recorded in the minutes unless 6 members of the council indicate that they wish for this to happen, in accordance with the Standing Order 20.2. Members, please note that I have 2 major events planned and I would appreciate your support in attending. The first one is Mayor's Charity Quiz Night with fish and chip supper on Friday, 29th of October, St. Margaret's Social Club. Tickets are £12.50 per person and available now from Mayor's Secretary, and I hope you'll support it. The quiz master is Councillor David Taylor, whom you can trust, I'm sure. Because I had the pleasure to attend Harpenden Mayor's Quiz Night with Councillor Taylor, the 3 mayors, myself and Houghton Regis, as well as the Mayor of Harpenden. And I'm sure Councillor Taylor will declare the result for the 3 mayors in the competition, which was not very encouraging, to say the least. But would you like to declare?
Well, I think I did okay. I think the team let me down.
We were the last.
We didn't finish where we anticipated finishing.
Yes.
Put it that way.
Yes. But we were in second last, but the last. Yes. The second date is the one for your diary, really, is the more important one. Mayor's Christmas dinner, Friday, the 17th of December at the Auction House. And I'm sure you're going to be enthusiastically supporting that. That includes the offices of the council, because I remember when I first got on the council, officers used to be enthusiastically attending the mayor's charity. I hope the chief executive can encourage that, and we will have the same spirit what we had, because we had 18 months of lockdown, and I'm sure you all want to get out and attend these things. So please do support it, because we do need these charities at a very difficult time, and they need your support. Now, all members of the council have been circulated, and that's you, Mr. Chief Executive, and I was trying to do your job.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. All members of the council have been circulated with a list of items before the council this evening, which fall within the ambit of section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992. Any member affected should disclose the fact and refrain from voting on any question relating to those items. Mr. Mayor, I have received no section 106 disclosures. Mr. Mayor, I've also received no other disclosures of interest.
I'm surprised tonight, this evening, there are no questions under the standing order 7.1. I call upon Councillor Yasmin to present the report of the Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Authority. Councillor Vahid.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I present this report to the Council of the Bedfordshire Rescue Fire Authority, which held its meeting on the 15th of July 2021.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any questions? Does the council receive the report? Yeah. Good. If any member objects to these indicate otherwise, I'll assume that members are in agreement. No? With regards to agenda item 6, there are no written questions this evening for the Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Authority. Next item on the agenda is 7.1, Annual Report of the Standards Committee. I invite Councillor Samira Salim to move the report. Samira.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the recommendation set out on paragraph 2 on page 25.
Thank you. Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any questions? Are there any amendments? Does any member wish to speak to the motion? Motion is before the council. Does any member vote against the proposal? The motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is 8.1, appointment of honorary recorder. I call upon Councillor Simon to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report before you this evening is to seek approval to appoint His Honour Judge Bishop as honorary recorder for Luton while he is in office in the town. If you remember, a few years ago, we did the same with Judge Bishop, Judge Foster. He had started building the relationship between the judiciary and the civil part of our town, and we want to continue on that agenda, as does the new judge. So I would ask members to agree this report tonight, and we will obviously have a more formal presentation of this at the correct time.
Is the motion seconded? Yep. Are there any questions? Does any member wish to speak to the motion? Are there any amendments? No. The motion is before the council. Does any member vote against the proposal? No. The motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is 9.1. Vacancy on the Development Management Group. I call upon Councillor Simmons to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report speaks for itself with really, and it is to replace, sadly, Councillor Paul Castleman's position on development control. And I would like to nominate this evening for council, Councillor Samira Cushing into that position.
Is the motion seconded?
Mayor.
Are there any amendments? Does any member wish to speak to the motion? The motion is before the council. Does any member vote against the proposal? Motion is carried. Resolution to exclude the public and the press. I move that under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, public and the press be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of the following item, as it is likely that there would be disclosure to them of exempt information falling within paragraph 3 of the part 1, schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. Is the motion seconded?